We had started with the concept of motivation, and then we also talked about why there are, for, at least for two counts or two reasons, this topic is very, very important. Yeah, you need to have your personal motivation, but at the same time, you must also be willing to motivate people around you. That includes predominantly your subordinates. So, the most challenging task for any manager today is how to motivate their subordinates. They don't understand what is this, what makes them, why why people don't do as they're expected to do. So why they don't show their energies. This is something which I've also noticed in the classrooms. Even in the first hour itself, in the early morning first hour itself, I don't see that energy among students. They become very sick and they look very lazy that early morning also. I can understand post lunch, uh, after having lunch, half an hour onwards, people would feel drowsy. But early hours also. So why they don't have? See, if you have really the motivation, all things become secondary. Rest of all the things become secondary. So once most important of all for a professional is personal motivation. Now, in addition to that, you must also be motivating because you're paid for it. You're supposed to motivate your subordinates. And then we know that the long link from motivation as the first cause, motivation leads to efforts, efforts lead to performance, performance leads to rewards, rewards lead to satisfaction, satisfaction leads to quality of life. If you can theorize like this, long run, that's the long link. Actually, first cause, second cause, third cause, you still have cause and effect. So motivation ultimately leads to a better quality of life. So therefore, if only we knew that, we garner our inner motives, and then we ensure that there's always something motivating, and then we are into action called motivation. So in pursuit of that, we've attempted to look at what is it by its definition. Like it's called general devotion of energy. That was suggested by a professor named Patchen, Patchen, in 1962. Patchen defined motivation as general devotion of energy. But we had seen yesterday, yeah, motivation is defined by many ways actually. Motivation sometimes is also understood as involvement, extent of involvement, extent of involvement in the workplace. And motivation also reflects upon extent of participation in the workplace. These are some of the symptoms of motivation. Motivation also can be understood from the way people contribute to the discussions and in the meetings. They're very actively contributing their ideas, discussing politely, then giving wonderful ideas. A lot of excitement would be there around because of your ideas, because of your way, because of the way you contribute to those discussions. That reflects how much of motivation that you have. And there's one particular instance I recollect now. During 70s, there was a girl who was young girl who was given bravery award by the prime minister. I think that time it was Indira Gandhi or Morarji Desai. I don't remember. One of those prime ministers' time. So this young girl was given bravery award because she saved so many children from being drowned during a flood. So when the water is gushing, then a lot of children, school-going children, were being drowned. So she would jump into that water, and then she would rescue one by one all those children. And normally it's not that easy because when there is a flooding water, the water gushes through great speed, and then because of it, it will have a lot of energy to drive away anything along. But this girl, against all the stream, she rescued so many of those children, and that's why she was given a bravery award. So what I understand from this kind of analogy is, you may jump once and save a child, and you should be satisfied. But she's not satisfied because all those Western theories say that once you're satisfied with one goal accomplishment, it's no longer attractive to you. But she's challenging all those Western understanding. I think it happened somewhere in Uttar Pradesh or someplace, I guess. So why would she have motivation which is continuous and never satisfied with saving few children? She wanted to save the last one. That's what we call persistence. So we yesterday talked about definition, like we can go back to that definition. With what intensity you drive yourself. Nobody has to drag you, nobody has to pull you. It has to come from within. So what intensity one person has towards his goal? Is it the same intensity that you have? That means the desire. Do you have the same strong feeling for whatever you want to achieve? Like, do you have the same intensity of pursuing your goal which you started 1 week ago? And after 1 week, do you still have the same persistence? Do you have the same direction? Most of us are demotivated, or most of us are less motivated. Most of us are losing our motivation because the intensity is not the same. The direction is not the same. The persistence is not the same. Unless you have these three, you cannot be motivated. Similarly, so you have to create atmosphere in such a way that all your subordinates feel that there is an intensity in them towards accomplishment. Without knowing them, you are applying force. That's a very beautiful way of managing things. They should not be knowing that you are driving them, but at the same time they are driven. That's a smart way of getting things done. So you should also have the same intensity, show that same energy, and then your subordinates also will have the same energy. So in besides that, we had seen various theories called content theories, namely uh, Abraham Maslow's theory, which is also called a needs theory, then followed by theory X and theory Y, and then we had also seen what is called two-factor theory, Frederick Herzberg's two-factor theory. This is a very interesting theory actually, because I have seen in many government offices the hygienic factors are very poor. You don't have proper office, sometimes you don't have a proper table, proper chair, proper facilities, because these buildings are very very old, and as a result nothing can be changed. And uh, and most of these government offices, they cannot afford to buy expensive or most latest equipment, so people are expected to satisfy with or operate with only the old ones. So hygiene factors may not be good. As a result, people have dissatisfaction, but they're still working, they're still achieving. Why? Because of the presence of motivational factors. That's an interesting theory. In my most of my workplaces, I've seen in most of my workplaces, I didn't enjoy hygiene factors, even in my existing workplace. Most of them, except at Apollo hospitals, I've never enjoyed hygiene factors in any of my workplace. Right from that pharma company, that was my first company, then later another college, and then uh, Apollo. Except Apollo Hospital, I've never enjoyed hygiene factors anywhere in my workplace all these 30 years. But my achievements are the highest when compared with my own peer group. None of my professors, none of my colleagues can reach me in terms of my achievements until the next 10-15 years. They cannot catch up with me. I am ahead of them in all respects, like doing research, publications, producing books, producing papers, producing conferences, organizing international conferences. They can never come closer to me for the next 20 years, in spite of having poor hygiene factors. And then I have also seen that some of those people who have enjoyed the best hygiene factors, five-star atmosphere, but still their achievements are extremely poor. They could not produce a single textbook. They could not produce an international level good research papers. They could not produce PhDs. They could not produce any international conferences, but they are still professors. So, what I'm trying to say finally, this theory can help us understand why one achieves in spite of having a poor hygiene factors. I don't have good working conditions, very poor working conditions, uh, dusty workplace, trash everywhere, and there is a job cuts, no adequate staff to clean the rooms around surroundings, a lot of mosquitoes around. I still, in spite of all that, my achievement during the last 8 months, I have produced uh, four PhDs. So why does that happen? It's because I'm finding uh, recognition in my own work. My work recognizes me. Men may not recognize me. People may not recognize me. Bosses may not recognize me. Subordinates may not recognize me. But my job itself recognizes me. And I have that sense of achievement that I have done my duty fairly. I have taken my responsibilities and fulfilled fairly. And therefore, my achievements are highest any given time. In fact, there was one occasion where the performance appraisal was conducted in my institution. Uh, that year, I was the highest incentive receiver. Around 3.5 lakhs I got as an incentive. And that was a record in the history of that institution during the last 30 years. Until today, nobody had matched that kind of incentive until today. And I don't think anybody in the future can reach it. It's why because very simple. Uh, People who are always cribbing about facilities, surroundings, but they are not seeing the what you call the colorful picture behind that. Your very work itself. Every morning you wake up and go to your workplace. You have to face your work. You are not going to be there in your office for eternal. So it's just a passing reference in your life. As long as you want to work, you work. So why do you attach yourself to all those facilities? Why you should have a very good AC chamber? You can have a minimum facility. Why should you have a chandelier? Why should you have a flower vase? Why should you have all those expensive things? Does your job require that? If you're in the front office, I can understand you need all those things because guests keep coming up. Those hygienes are fine there. But in many times, we don't need those hygienes. With minimum bare facilities, we can do a great job. So Hesburgh's two-factor theory wonderfully explains why absence of hygiene factors does not demotivate, but absence of motivational factors definitely demotivates people. But presence of hygiene factors causes satisfaction. Like for example, every day morning I go to my office. There's somebody who provides me with a hot coffee, cup of coffee in this climate. Yeah, it gives me great sense of feeling. And then a comfortable chair, a good table to work with, a good computer, adequate lighting, and then adequate ventilation, a minimum decent work. That's what ILO, International Labour Organization, which regulates the standards of labor across the world. So a few years back, probably 5 6 years ago, they came out with a slogan called "Provide decent work to your employees." So they defined what is called decent work. So it comes under hygiene factors. So even if I have a very poor boss, wherever I worked, I had very poor bosses, except for one place, that Apollo Hospital, gentlemen. I had very poor bosses. In fact, that short time I had another boss, and because of him, I had to quit. So that's a universal truth that when we are quitting the jobs, it's just because of the boss. It's just because of the boss. Top reason. So hygiene factors, if they are in good condition, if they are good in their existence, it causes satisfaction, but does not cause motivation. Because after all, you have to work. You may have good policies, you may have conditions, you may have relations good, you may have security of job, you may have good pay, you may have good supervision, but you have to perform your work, and that performance comes only from motivational factors. That's why presence of motivational factors will cause higher levels of motivation and also satisfaction. So now what we will do before uh, we move on, contemporary theories could also be actually there's nothing called contemporary theories because these are all 50 60 years old theories only. And the last theory which I would be talking about is somewhere in 70s, 74, 75 it was proposed. So which means it's more than 30 years. Until recently, I have not seen any better theories. So, in fact, instead of defining them as old theories and contemporary theories, I should have probably classified according to standard classification called content theories and process theories. The content theories, the content theories are called theory need based, or what actually motivates people are called content theories. The content in the job motivates people, and the second classification is called process theories. How exactly the motivation happens. So we need both of them actually. We must know what motivates some people. What motivates me may not motivate you, I am telling you. What motivates you may not motivate me. It's possible. So, like for example, I might be giving a lot of importance to self-esteem and self-actualization. You may be giving importance to basic needs. There's also standard research support which says that employees are motivated by basic needs like physiological needs, safety needs, and belongingness. They are least bother about self-esteem and self-actualization, which I don't correct believe. Every human being wants to achieve the highest potential, realize it in his lifetime or her lifetime. But research also tries to prove that executives or managers are motivated by self-esteem and self-actualization needs, which is also not correct. Basics are basics only, because we're all basically human beings. So these are only assumptions, but um, content theories, the needs, basically called the needs, which motivate people. So some more content theories I would like to share with you as we move through the slides. The first one is called Alderfer's ERG theory, then McClelland's theory of needs. So these are the two theories which are also called need based or content theories. And then next one called expectancy theory, equity theory, goal setting theory, job characteristics theory, and then cognitive evaluation theory. These are actually not part of your syllabus, but I'm just giving you some overview so that you are not missing out tomorrow something on this understanding. So Alderfer's theory is a reduction of Abraham Maslow's theory. So as we move further, you can see that, and McClelland talks about three important needs. Then expectancy theory, equity theory, remaining are all talking about how actually motivation happens in the workplace. So we will slowly move. Let's move to Alder first. So Alder first talk about ERG, which stands for existence, relatedness, and growth needs. Again, this is a content theory based on three important needs. So what is called existence need, which is very similar to what you call Maslow's physiological needs and safety and security needs, two levels. Then relatedness needs are to do with the belongingness needs of Maslow. They are very similar. And then lastly, growth needs are to do with self-esteem and self-actualization. So it's just simply reducing five needs into three needs. Nothing much, nothing more about it, nothing less about it. And therefore, uh, you can see that how it is condensed. We have already seen that anyway. So instead of five levels, you can find them only three levels. So we will not go much into it anyway. So let's get into the next one called McClelland, David McClelland's theory of needs. He had identified three important needs which drive people. And yeah, I have found this is very practical because uh, you can classify types of people according to these needs. Now, every one of us will have the need for achievement, need for power, and need for affiliation. Every one of us. But we differ in the degree of these needs dominating in us. Like, for example, politicians are known for need for power, businessmen are known for need for achievement. All those who are in public relations, all those are in entertainment industry. They are known for need for affiliation, contacts, friendships. So what I'm trying to say, irrespective of who you are, you have all these three needs that drive you. Everybody wants to achieve. Everybody wants to excel and succeed in life. You put a lot of pressure towards it, and then what actually the meaning of power? Maybe in one of those next classes, I will explain you. Power is the process of influencing people to get things done. You may be using various types of power. I will demonstrate that in one class with a lot of exercises. But without power, you cannot exact work from people. You cannot extract work from people. So exacting is not that easy as much as extracting. So unless you have need for power, people will not listen to you. So what type of a power you want to acquire? In one of the classes, I'll explain you that. But here we are broadly looking through need for achievement, need for power, and need for affiliation. These are the three important needs. And several years ago, probably I think 30 years ago, I had seen one gentleman conducting a wonderful, interesting research actually. So what he did is he had identified all the presidents of United States historically for 400 years. And what he did is using so many archives, old libraries, their speeches, their material, their videos, their audios, uh, whatever was available, all those presidents' literature he had read through, and he had classified them into some presidents known for need for achievement, some presidents known for need for power, and some presidents known for need for affiliation. In fact, if you have some time, you can also try it out. You try all the prime ministers of this country, right from Jawaharlal Nehru onwards until today. You can identify which prime minister is known for achievement, power, and affiliation. I have done that. So it's very interesting because this is the only way you can relate it. And now at the next level, what you can do, you identify yourself. Which need is dominant in you? Are you known for achievement, power, or affiliation? You can also find out from your family members which need is dominant in them. Though all three are equally important for us, but we are dominant on at least one of them. One of these needs predominantly operate in us. Like in my case, the need for achievement is always higher, uh, because of which I have become type A personality, type A plus actually, type A plus. Now I got into that mold. Now it's very difficult to come out of it. I cannot simply sit. I'll go mad. It's because 30 years I'm so involved in the work at different places, not only in the corporate life, but also in the community life, religious circles, NGO movement. I am having my own business. I am a chairman of a company. So I'm involved in everywhere. So I do quite a lot of work on those fronts. And then in addition to all of this, I visit tribal belts, help those tribal families with kind of educating them, providing them with medicines, some food packs we supply, all kinds of social welfare activities we do in the tribal belts. Uh, at least 4 times in a year, we will go and cover somewhere around 60, 70 villages in a year. That we are doing for a long time actually. So people may say that how do you manage it? Yeah, anybody can manage it if only you have motivation, that same intensity, same direction, and same persistence. So where are we using our motivation? That's a very important question actually.
Sir, how would we know whether we are an achievement or power or affiliation?
In fact, what we can do, you can assess yourself online. What you can do is simply type uh, assessment of McClelland's needs. Type it out in Google. Or you
Okay,
can
sir.
even say
Thank you, sir.
free assessment of McClelland's needs. So you will have a questionnaire, answer those questions, and then it will tell you which one is dominant in you. That's the easiest way, and that is a scientific way actually. But there is a traditional way of explaining. Somebody else might have told you like this. Uh, you should be knowing whether you are achieving regularly. At the end of the day, if you examine yourself, what did you achieve for today? Or maybe weekly, examine yourself. This week, what did you achieve? Today is weekend. So what did you achieve by end of this week? So if you have that kind of understanding, you are restless. At the end of the day, you think that today I couldn't achieve anything. Today I didn't do a good work. That means you're going mad. You are having sorry figure. That's a very, what I would say. That's not a very scientific way of explaining, but because every day you may not have achievements, because achievements are time bound. So if you have a goal set, then if you have achieved it in a given time, then you have that achievement. When you don't have goal set, then why should you worry about achievement? Then you must also be knowing whether do you regularly influence people around you? Will they listen to you? When you talk, will they listen to you? Will they do whatever you are suggesting? Or are they challenging you? Or are they resisting you? Or are they just cutting you off? That means you are not able to use this need for power. Do you have so many friends? When you're around, do you think so many people flock around you? That also shows your need for affiliation. These are only some simple examples I am giving you, but scientifically you should assess using some instruments available online. You must be having, because it's a very old topic, so definitely you should be having countless instruments on Google. So try one of them. You should be able to know which one is dominant in you, because they will give you a list of indicators of each of these needs. So when you answer to those list, then you would know after summation of those answers which need is dominant in you. You might be having all these needs in different proportions, but one of which would be very high. So with that, we'll move on slowly. Now I'll skip this. Now, if you look through this picture for a while, I'll give you some time. Uh, with all your imagination, with all your understanding, try to describe what is happening in this picture. I'll pause. So think about it. Whatever the descriptions that you have, try to do that. So would anybody wants to respond?
Actually, she's experimenting something in the lab, adding some chemicals, and the other men are closely observing the thing.
Okay, but that's not what you are expected to explain. What is happening in the picture? It's not simply she's doing some work and then that gentleman is watching her. Whatever is visible, you're explaining. But what you should do is you have to go back behind this visualization. Anybody else wants to try?
Sir, I think it's Marie Curie, sir, like experimenting on mercury, I think.
Okay. How do you know that the name?
I think so, sir, but I don't.
She did something on atomic atoms colliding, all that, right? Madame Curie.
Yes, sir.
I'm not very.
Especially radium, sir.
She was doing some research on radium. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, sir.
Guess what? You have to visualize what is What is happening here?
Sir, she is observing the reactions of the chemicals during the experiment under the guidance of her professor or senior.
Okay.
Things.
So there is a professor and a student, right?
Yes, sir.
And she is observing something in her
Yes,
experiment.
sir.
So that's what it. See, when you're answering actually what's happening, I'm not expecting you to describe what is. I'm not expecting what is this picture all about. I'm wanting to know what is your impressions about it. That means what is how your brain is reacting to this picture. Those things I wanted to know. So when you said that there's a professor and a student, your mind is reflecting on need for affiliation, whereas your other friend said she's doing some experimenting, so his mind is on achievement. Because your mind is predominantly talking about one aspect from this picture. So when you're talking about some research she's pursuing, that means your mind is on need for achievement. But when you say professor and a student, your mind is on need for affiliation. So your mind is talking about relationships, more important. And then one of your friends said, professor is watching her, observing her. Probably it's a reflection of his power. So your mind is capturing the need for power. I hope you got some idea. So
Yes.
every time you
Yes,
look
sir.
at certain things, uh, your expressions, your explanations will reflect upon how your mind is receiving. And then from your backgrounds, you interpret it. So stimulus, response of an individual. So let's move forward. There are many ways by which you can identify your needs for motivation. There's an interesting test called TAT, called Thematic Apperception Test. TAT. So simply if you can type in Google TAT, Thematic Apperception Test, you'll be interesting. Like yesterday also I had shown you one picture about a farmer looking up to the sky, uh, and then there is a sunset or a sunrise. So by simply looking at that picture, you have to describe. That's a thematic apperception test. Some theme has to be perceived and then explained. Based on that, your mind is understood, how your thought process is understood. And maybe something like 30, 40 years ago, more than that, I think more 50, 60 years ago, I guess, uh, there is something called ink blot test. Have you heard of it? Ink blot. Uh, if you
Yes,
are
sir.
familiar with, yeah, if you are familiar with the fractals on a computer screen, if you switch on screensaver, a lot of things happen around on your computer screen. Unusual images will be popping up, revolving, moving from one corner to the other corner, creating so many attractive images which cannot be easily described. It's not possible to describe those images. They are called fractals. Or in a kaleidoscope, if you had rotated it during your school days, you'd have noticed that it is giving you so many unusual images which you have never seen before. But you cannot also describe them. You can imagine on a white sheet, I spill ink from my fountain pen, and then I fold the paper multiple times, and later on I would open it up. Then it creates a very peculiar image, and then I would ask people to explain what is that image. That's called thematic apperception test. So based on your explanations, I would know what is your need for affiliation, need for power and need for achievement. I can understand like that. But to what extent are they reliable is a big question. But there is a lot of evidence to support that these kind of things are reliable. Even sometimes in an job interview, I remember 30, 40 years ago, in a job interview, they would show these kind of pictures and they would ask you to explain it. Based on that, they would know whether you are suitable for a job because whether your thinking is in the similar lines as the interviewer is expecting. Are you achievement oriented guy? By your explanations, the interviewer would know. Very interesting dynamics. So let's slowly move into some. I think we have about 50. As much as possible, we'll try to see these theories. But these are very important, though all of them are not part of your syllabus. So what I would do, I would give you very brief explanation. But if you are interested, you read on your own more into them. It's because a lifetime achievement. You are completing all the theories of motivation. So let's start with what is called expectancy theory. Now, what do you mean by expectancy? I'm sure you can understand that something which you are expecting. That's called expectancy. So for your efforts, you're expecting something. For your performance, you're expecting something. That's why it's called expectancy. How much should I work? If I work more, will I get more? That's something called expectancy. So for my efforts, what is my outcome? That's called expectancy. So here you can see expectancy is the strength of a tendency to act in a certain way depends on the strength of your expectation. And that act will be followed by a given outcome and on the attractiveness of the outcome to the individual. So what does it mean? If you have a tendency to act in a certain way, depends on the strength of your expectation, and therefore when the outcome is seen, is it attractive or not? So if that outcome is not attractive, your expectation is not fulfilled, and as a result you don't have motivation. So but as per your expectation, you put your effort and you got the outcome, that means the result, and then that reward is attractive, then your motivation is fulfilled. So expectation, outcome, and attractiveness of that outcome. So he had used certain peculiar terms. I have simplified it anyway. So first expectation, it focuses on three important relationships. The first one is how much of efforts and performance. So efforts and performance are related. So what is the possibility that possibility of perceived by the individual that putting a given amount of effort will lead to performance? It's a very difficult question actually. How much of efforts if I put will I be able to perform well? That's one relationship. Then the second one is to the what degree I believe that my performance at a particular level will give me a desired outcome. If I work 8 hours, what would be my reward? If I work 6 hours, what would be my reward? That's called performance reward relationship. And then finally, reward and goal relationship, your personal goals. The degree to which organizational rewards satisfy an individual's personal goals or needs, and the attractiveness of those potential rewards for the individual. Like as I told you several years ago, I got the highest incentive. Then I realized that it is very easy to crack any performance appraisal system in any company. People are worried about it, but I took it such a easy cakewalk. Because in the beginning of the year, your boss will tell you this is what I'm expecting from you. But you will forget about it after 1 month. But if you can note down all the expectations, take a printout of it and paste it before your eyes on a wall. Every day you look at it and perform accordingly, you will get highest incentive. So ultimately, what does it mean? The amount of efforts I put and therefore by performance. The amount of performance and therefore the reward. The amount of reward, therefore it helps my personal goals. That's what we call expectancy. So if they are not, if these relationships are not matching, then your expectancy comes down, and therefore you don't have motivation. So you can see here, very simple, efforts and performance is called expectancy. Performance and rewards is called instrumentality. So these are the technical terms you have to understand. Efforts performance relationship is called expectancy. Then performance and reward relationship is called instrumentality. The rewards and personal goals are called valence. So expectancy, instrumentality, valence determines your motivation. This can also be tested. So what you can do, you can go to internet and try assessment of expectancy theory. Free test, or you can type like that, free test for assessing expectancy theory. And you can try it on your own. When you answer those questions, it will tell you how much of expectancy, instrumentality, valence that you have. So this is another interesting theory. And then we have it's a very, very popular theory based on economics also, because as I told you in the first class, we borrowed some contributions from economics, psychology, sociology, political science, anthropology, biology, physics, and so on. So here is some theory which has some contributions from economics. It's called equity. Equity means fairness or justice. So equity theory. So how much of fairness that you perceive in your workplace? It's based on that kind of a foundation. So you can see here, equity theory, individuals equate the value of rewards to the efforts and compare it to the other people's efforts and their rewards. For example, I work 8 hours and I am paid 100 rupees. You work 8 hours, you are paid 120 rupees. It's possible. So, but both of us have worked 8 hours, but why our rewards are different? That means there is inequity. That is unfairness. So the standard assumption is that my inputs, my outcomes are equal to others' inputs and others' outcomes. That is called equity or fairness, absolute fairness. But you can imagine, we always keep comparing. We always keep comparing. We are both are working same, but why he is given favor? Why he is paid more? Why he is given incentive more? Do you have courage to go and ask them? In India, we don't do that. In the Western societies, they will straight go to the boss's room and then ask. Their cultures are different. So when you compare, if it's equal, then it's called equity. When it is not equal, it's called inequity. So what happens if it's equity? Motivation is maintained. But if it is inequity, it must be reduced. Of course, we normally do like that. See, I worked hard, but I am not paid much. Then why should I work hard from tomorrow? So I will change my inputs because I know my outcomes are changed. Or I may be comparing unnecessarily with somebody, don't know, without knowing what he contributed. So there can be various steps that we have to take to reduce our inequity, but it always begins with the boss. First of all, boss should ensure that there is equity. Most often than not, I have realized it, bosses cause inequity. For example, during interview, the salary negotiations, that fellow wants, the new comer wants to be paid at a higher level. But what about the old employees? But the boss says, don't you think you have negotiated for the old pay? So he is also fair, no? Boss is also fair. But you feel it's inequity because that the new employee has negotiated for a better pay. But you know that though he is paid better, but his performance is not up to the mark. But you are not the person to comment like that. It is your boss who should be raising that issue. Unfortunately, most of the bosses do not do that. That's our problem in our cultures. So how do we reduce inequity? There should be a proper policy, in my opinion. A reward policy, wage policy, incentive policy, benefits policy. So many policies we have to evolve in our workplaces to reduce inequity, because we know that if inequity exists, people's performance comes down. As a result, his motivation comes down. And if it continues for a long, he will have a tendency to quit the job. So that's it's a beautiful theory actually. So we'll move slowly. I'll just quit this. We'll move on to the next theory called goal setting theory. I'm skipping some of the slides just to avoid further complications. But if you're really interested, you can read through more material on Adams equity theory. It is actually called Adams equity theory. Now, goal setting theory is another important. See, if you want to be highly motivated, after all, your goal should be attractive. So this goal setting theory talks about what kind of a goal, if you set, you would have more motivation. So number one, it should be having difficulty. That means a goal should be very challenging and requires more efforts. First point. Then the next one is called specificity of the goal. So when you're setting a goal, you should have a lot of clarity and accuracy or precision of the goal. So you will know that exactly by so and so time you can accomplish it. Then the third one is acceptance. First of all, you should accept that it is your own goal. Then only you'll have the efforts. You will put your efforts. And finally, commitment. The extent to which you are personally interested in reaching the goal, come what may. So these four important aspects are put together is called goal setting theory. Now, I've never heard much about this theory, but it's very simple to understand that. Set a difficult goal and be specific on it, and then accept it as your own, and then put efforts to reach it. That's called commitment. And therefore, your motivation is high. So we'll skip some more aspects, and how you would do it, all that is explained in this theory, but I will skip it. We'll move on to the last theory. This is a very interesting theory. I might have demonstrated it in the previous trimester, I don't know, semester. You can tell me if it is true. Otherwise, what we can do, tomorrow, I think tomorrow is Sunday. Tomorrow we will not have the class. So Monday, I can try small exercise. And in the meantime, you read this theory more and come back. So Hackman and Oldham's job characteristic theory of motivation, it is called. I think it is 1974 or 75 it was proposed. Very, very interesting theory. You can diagnose jobs with the help of this theory. And in order to know whether there is a motivation potential or motivating potential in every job or not, you will know that. So work itself is the greatest motivator. That is the basis of this theory. What motivates people? It's not money, it's not any other aspects of it, but work itself. So make work very interesting to them, so that design works in such a way that they derive motivation from their work, because all through the day they have to work. That's based on that premise this theory was proposed. So in this theory, these two professors have suggested that there is something called core dimensions of job. Every job should have these characteristics, 5 of them, called skill variety, some amount of newness, some amount of change, some amount of new skills that you should be utilizing and applying. Then task identity, like you said, we talked about that goal setting theory. You should own your goal. So something similar to that. Task identity is like whatever the work that you're doing, you must identify yourself with that work. And then task significance. how much of impact that you're creating on others while performing your task. Are you creating a positive impact or a negative impact? That's what we call task significance. So if these three characteristics are there in every job, the employee will experience meaningfulness of work, and therefore he will have high intrinsic motivation. Intrinsic motivation is also called the two-factor theory, if you remember. Intrinsic motivation is called motivators. Extrinsic motivation is called hygiene factors. So skill variety, task identity, task significance leads to meaningfulness of work, and then if the work is meaningful, employees will enjoy high intrinsic motivation, which means achievement, responsibility, recognition, and so on, and therefore they'll have high job performance. And then these three characteristics called core dimensions: skill, task identity, and task significance, they are called additive characteristics. That means they add motivation. Whereas the remaining two, called autonomy, feedback, they are called multiplicative characteristics. So what do you mean by autonomy? Sufficient freedom or discretion to perform certain duties. Like you should be giving them opportunity to try out their new skills, innovative methods of working. That's what we call autonomy. And then feedback is periodically you're giving them information about how they are performing. So autonomy, feedback are more important because they are multiplicative characteristics. They boost motivation. So if you give autonomy to them, they'll be responsible for the results. And then if you provide them with feedback, they will develop knowledge about the results. And as a result, autonomy leads to higher job satisfaction, and knowledge leads to lowered absenteeism and turnover. In other words, all these five characteristics, either in individual or in combination, results in higher motivation, higher job performance, higher job satisfaction, lowered absenteeism and turnover. That's how this basic theory is explained, and heavy research has been done on this since 1974. For more than 20 years, this theory was heavily researched, and a lot of sufficient support was found. And that's why this is one of the best theories ever invented on motivation. So what I mean is, your motivation can be improved by inputting these core dimensions into everybody's job. So when you're designing your subordinates' jobs, include all of these five dimensions, and therefore they will experience psychological states like meaningfulness of work, responsibility for their outcomes, knowledge of the results, and then the final outcomes are very, very positive, like their high motivation, high performance, high satisfaction. And they have a tendency to commit. That's what we call lowered absenteeism, lowered turnover, means they have high commitments. So that's it for today. Monday, what we will do, I'll just conduct a small exercise to demonstrate how much of motivation you have, and then we'll move with a new topic called working with groups. That's going to be our new topic. So get ready, working with groups. In fact, I kept some good books in your library collection, so you can go through OB subjects and then read some material on groups and come back. It's always advisable at post-graduation level that you're doing some reading before going to the class. But unfortunately, our challenges are different, but that's not an excuse. You still have to do some reading before you go to the class. So when the topic is announced, do some basic homework and come back. Therefore, your intensity will be high, you will be directed, and you'll be persisting. So with that, I discontinue this topic. If you have any questions, you can ask me. Otherwise, we'll move ahead. Anybody has questions or any reflections, any reactions?
You were telling about job satisfaction, right, sir? And then how to make the job more interesting. But some of the production lines are like monotonous, repetitive work, no, sir?
You are absolutely correct. So that's the reason what I said is using this theory, can you enable employees to try out some variety of doing things, new methods, new methods of performing. As a boss, you can provide them that opportunity. So ask them to try something new. It normally happens when you have a problem. All of us do not have the same ways of solving problem. There may be some people who are very, very creative. Some people may be trying their same old methods. Or some people may be discussing with somebody outside and bringing their solution inside. What I mean is, these are some of the ways by which you are trying something which is called variety. So some amount of variety, you should be trying it out. What if you're eating same breakfast food items every day? You will be fed up. It doesn't motivate you. So keep trying it. I just gave an example years ago, I remember. In Singapore, uh, there's something called, they call kidli actually. In our country, in South, we say idli. They call it kidli. And then what I found is nothing much. Uh, in our South, you would say go to any Udupi hotel, idlis would be plain white. But in Singapore, their idlis are actually, Singapore is predominantly Tamilians you would find there. So idlis are coming from Tamil Nadu. We know that. So they make they call it kidli, which is very decorative. It's not just plain white colored food item, but it has all grated carrot, maybe some greens, some varieties of things that they. It's like a more decorated idli. But tell me honestly, how many of us have this idea? Very recently, I have seen somebody making idli out of what is that called? Uh, Millets. So what I mean is, your breakfast can be different. You can make a different breakfast. Why only same breakfast every day? Same chapati, same dosa, same idli. So
So,
I'm not
but
talking
in
about the food
service
items.
industry,
Yeah, I'm not just talking about the food items. What I'm trying to say, it's in your mind actually. Skill variety, some amount of skills that you should be trying out always. So it's a mind basically. It's not the skills that you might be possessing, but there's something new ways of doing things. Why I should always do the traditional way? Many people say this is the only way you should do in a government office, and that's why you don't have higher motivations, because you don't have scope for skill variety. But there is always a way you can try it out. Monday we'll address some of those things. Like what can we do for at least 1 week? Can we have some action plan to improve upon our skill variety, task identity, task significance, autonomy, and feedback? So that's it for today. Hope we can discontinue it.